Welcome back, everybody, to Hoops HD. This
you gotta
is
hit record, Chad. You gotta hit record.
Okay, starting in 3. David, I already hit record. Welcome back to Hoops HD. This is our bracket rundown.
Another great beginning, Chad.
I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined by the loudmouth puppet over here named David Griggs.
Yes.
Joby Fortson and John Titel below us. A couple other that were supposed to join us tonight may jump in. We have Mike Cha back with us for the first time in quite a while. Mike, how you doing out there?
Good. It's frigid outside, but it's nice and warm here.
And Mike, you're a Michigan guy. Are you up in Michigan right now? Is that where you are?
In Ann Arbor.
In Ann Arbor. All right.
We traded Kyle Lamb, the Ohio State guy, for the Michigan guy. It's an upgrade.
Major upgrade.
Yes.
Getting rid of any Ohio State guy is an upgrade, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if they're on the same seed line, though, tonight.
Oh, yeah. But this is our bracket rundown show where what we have done this week, we've done this a couple of times so far. I think this is the second time I've done this season, is I asked all of our panelists to submit to me their top 55 teams, regardless of conference. I cross-country scored them like you would do a top 25 poll. I guess it was a top 55 poll. And came up with a consensus seed list. I added in the single bid conferences at the end of that, got a final 1 to 68. I proceeded to bracket them up as well. And what we're going to do on this show is reveal that bracket just like they would on Selection Sunday. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did. So it is a Selection Sunday experience. You're the only one that knows the bracket. Although what I think you should have done is just take my list and make that the bracket.
Actually, I threw out your list.
Perfect. But anyway, a couple of pointers. If you haven't watched us before, this exercise, we are not trying to guess the selection committee, nor are we trying to suppose what they would do if today was Selection Sunday. This is entirely our own. We do have John Titel and other people that are selection committee experts that do that, but that's not what this show is. What was the other? There's another point that I always forget to point out. What is it, Chad? No games were considered on Thursday, February 13th.
Yeah, we're recording this a little bit after 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern on Thursday, February 13th. None of the games that were played today were factored in here at all. As we record this, for example, we're watching Indiana on the verge of closing out Iowa in a big win for them. We already saw Cincinnati beat Memphis, but those games are not factored in yet. But when we get to those teams, if they make it, presumably, we can kind of discuss it a little bit.
Yes. And I just got home and turned on the TV, the Colorado-Oregon game. Apparently, Oregon fans aren't considering this game either. The guy that was supposed to unlock the doors not make it into work today. Where are the fans?
Just real quick, Rocco Miller joining us. And Rocco, I don't know if you can hear us or not, but you're coming from a special location tonight, are you not?
Yeah, I am. We're here at the Stanford Arizona State game.
Look at this. Let me get the screen share down. Keep going.
There you go. You can see the guys warming up. We're about 48 minutes till tip-off, so I'll stay on mute, but I'll bring the full crowd reaction when Stanford hopefully gets announced.
Can you get us on the scoreboard there?
I'm working on that.
Bracket reveal.
Yes, we're going to work on that.
Okay, great. Yes. Tell him, David. Tell him you're on the phone with David Griggs and to put it on the scoreboard.
All right. Well, we'll go back to Rocco a few times during the show as long as we can keep him on here. But let's go ahead and start revealing some teams here, I think. Like I said, this is the bracket. We're going to reveal one team at a time, at least for the first 16. I'm going to start with the consensus number one overall. I don't think it's going to surprise anybody at all that it is the Baylor Bears. There to get the
what?
Omaha. Let me ask a few questions. Titel, let me ask you this. How good is this Baylor team? Are they the favorite to win the national championship at this point?
As of today, yes, but I think we can save a lot of time for later by just throwing the 4-1 seeds up there, because I think that as of a mid-February number one seed line, this is one of the clearest we've had in as far as I can remember. You'll tell us and show us shortly, but that's what I think.
I think there was only one very minor dispute, quite honestly. Let's do just what he said here. Let's get all 4-1 seeds up here, because I don't think it's any surprise that Kansas is 2. There was a little bit of dispute between who was 3 and 4, but not much, whether it was Gonzaga or San Diego State. Gonzaga did come out on top, despite San Diego State being undefeated. But Joby, you agree with that? And the big difference here is whichever of these teams gets number 3 overall is the team that goes to the West region, as opposed to having to go to the East region and playing in New York City. So
right, and playing basically not just a road game because it's across the country, but I have a sneaky suspicion that one of 2 teams will be their 2 seed on the other side, and will basically have New York ties in strong New York ties. But
Go ahead.
I had San Diego State ahead of Gonzaga, but it's all due to have that 0 in the loss column for San Diego State, projecting it out as such.
Can we put them on side by side,
I
Chad?
can't disagree with anyone who puts Gonzaga even with that. I mean, Gonzaga only has 1 loss, so it's a tough pull. I do like San Diego State, by the way. Their positives are actually, it's not just like a Stephen F. Austin going undefeated, with 1 big win out there and then it's done. Wins over Creighton, at BYU, Iowa on a neutral court, at Utah State, who's improving and probably will get discussed at least at the end of this podcast. I like San Diego State a little more right now, but I'm not going to fight over it. It's though I'm sure the Aztecs and Bulldogs will definitely want to be fighting over that last spot.
Well, Mike, let me ask you the same debate here, the Gonzaga-San Diego State game, because I personally, it was what Gonzaga did to St. Mary's that had me with Gonzaga 3, but I don't know what your thoughts are on this question.
Oh, to answer your question, John, Isaiah Livers.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but Mike, was asking about Gonzaga versus San Diego State. Which do you like better?
Oh, I saw in the chat. I think I had Sandy. Who did I pick? It's splitting hairs here. I mean,
Yeah, one of the things that I like, Chad, about San Diego State, I think they top out a little higher. I think the neutral floor win against Creighton, I'm really starting to like Creighton as a protected seed. I know Gonzaga has the chance to go to BYU. San Diego State's the only team that's won there. And then Iowa and Utah State also away from home. It's just that they've beaten a lot of good teams that don't lose a lot
on the road.
Yeah,
but Gonzaga won in Arizona and they beat Oregon. Yeah,
it's close. And I have been. Honestly, I had San Diego State down on the 2 line because I was real stubborn about that. Not being a protected seat away from home. But the more and more I look at them, I actually like them a little bit more than Gonzaga. But emphasis on a little bit. This is a really good San Diego State team. I think that because they play in the Mountain West and they're on at 1 a.m. or whatever time it is, maybe not many people have seen them, but God, they are good.
Okay, well, let's go move on to the 2 line here because it's a very fine debate that I think the season, as it plays out, may answer the questions. But Rocco, maybe I can bring you in here. Number 5 overall, probably not too big of a surprise, but a real penalty for San Diego State. You may get Duke in the regional in New York City.
And you get Duke in their home state. That is ridiculous.
Well, you got to remember each of those teams have to win 3 times to even make that game a reality. And I think, it's been a big topic here the last week since the bracket show. San Diego State fans, of course, prefer, even if they have to go down to a 2, I think many of the people I've talked to would love to just get on a bus and go to Los Angeles and take on Gonzaga instead. So it might be in their best interest to figure out a loss, even though the players and coaches won't go there. But another interesting fact in this, I was talking to Kyle Lamb earlier about this as well, is the San Diego State season will be wrapped up before Gonzaga even plays their semifinal game due to the XGD construction. Yeah, so that's another interesting thing to think about because San Diego State's is going to have to go out there and play not knowing what Gonzaga's done, whereas any other year Gonzaga would be done and San Diego State would then already know what their fate looked like for the West region.
Good point. Especially the first conference championship that'll be completed is the Mountain West Conference, even before the Ohio Valley. Let's take a look. Number 6 overall, also probably not that big of a surprise. Oh, it could be maybe. Actually, David, I think for you it is a surprise because you had them rated very lowly.
Very lowly? I think I had them on the 3 line.
You had them on the 3 line, which is the lowest of anybody. The rest of us all had this team up here on the 2 line. But Ty, let me ask you about this Maryland team here. They're playing lights-out basketball right now.
They are. They beat Rutgers, so that's extra points right there. I know David hates them, and I know they're a bit of a home court hero, but the fact is they are winning games.
They are winning games, and I don't know how much of a home court hero they really are anymore. Joby, they've won a few big road games at this point, which was the hole in their top of the resume.
Right, it is, and I really do. The Big Ten is the deepest conference in America. We can argue over the Big East, but come on, you're talking realistically double-digit berths right now, and Maryland's at the top of the heap of that.
Okay.
and that has to be worth something.
Oh, it's worth,
Especially
yeah.
the way that they've performed to date, and the fact they're only 6 with that
Mhm.
resume tells you how strong the top 5 are in this particular case. If Duke didn't have their preseason wins, to the degree they did, Maryland would be 5th. I think in a normal year. But yeah, Maryland is. I had them 6. This fits for me, and I think the Terps have got it going on this year.
And by the way, we would have both in this bracket. We'd have both Duke and Maryland both playing in Greensboro. They're not scheduled to match up with each other, but
Another
Wow.
reason
Building.
to move San Diego State.
That will Duke will not be a popular team in their round of 32.
there'll be a lot of Maryland fans.
And
Will
full
there
of
not?
Tar Heels. There won't be a lot of Blue Devils there.
I had Maryland as a protected seed, but not. Well, let's see who's next because
Let's
I
see who's
guarantee
next.
you
Okay.
they're better. Whoever it is, let's put them next to Maryland, and we'll discuss how much better they are.
Number 7 overall. the
Okay, maybe
Dayton
not them.
Flyers.
Jesus.
Mike, have you had a chance to see this Dayton team? Because this Dayton team I'm so impressed by what I'm seeing from them. Do we have you, Mike?
Mike,
Yeah, what?
Okay.
Dayton.
I had them as 7, so I have no problem with this.
Okay. Yeah, but just want your impressions on them. Is how good is this team in your opinion?
I haven't really seen them play, to be
Okay.
honest with you, so I can't really tell you.
Well, David,
Sorry.
just how good are they?
Well, they're really good. If you pull up their profile, it's paper. I think they're awesome on the court, but they're a little bit paper weak. I think their resume tops out with that win against St. Mary's, and typically, not always, but typically, when you're talking about a protected seed, you're talking about multiple wins against ranked teams, multiple teams that are in the top half of the bracket. Dayton has none of that, but what they've done is they've won decisively. If you look at their 2 losses, Colorado and Kansas, who's on the 1 line, they lost to them in overtime. Colorado also an overtime loss. You hate to say that the best thing on their bracket is losses, but those are indicators that this team's capable of playing at a Final Four level. And the other thing is that they've played a lot of different types of teams. They've played pressure teams. They've played teams like St. Louis that are really big and can kind of like to slow it down and can shoot well. It seems like while they haven't played highly ranked teams, they've played a smorgasbord. Like if you go down that seed list, how many different styles of play that they've run into, and they've basically clobbered everyone. So I think that they're built to go a long way because – it seems like no matter who they get matched up against, they've seen a team like that before, and they've beaten them pretty bad.
Okay, David, I'm going to jump in here because we are at the rate we're going, we're going to be about 7 hours on the show, so we've got to move a little bit quicker. But the last of the 2 seeds, we're going back to our second, or is it our third ACC team on this line here with the Louisville Cardinals? Despite the slip up at Georgia Tech yesterday, Rocco, still Louisville very strong despite that loss.
I think just by default, Louisville was in the 7th position on Saturday, according to the committee. And then the teams immediately behind them also lost, who we're going to probably talk about here in just a second. So I can live with Louisville on the 8th spot. I do slight nitpick. I think Dayton still belongs above Maryland, but I think the nitpick only matters because that would keep Dayton in Indianapolis.
Yeah, the penalty for Louisville slide to 8. You're now in the West region as opposed to maybe the Midwest or the South also.
Yeah. Louisville has beaten protected seeds away from home, something that Maryland has not done.
At number 9 overall, we have Seton Hall.
Yeah, Seton Hall has beaten protected seeds away from home, something Maryland has not done.
Seton Hall, another team coming off of a surprise, I may have been a surprise loss, but a loss as well. But Titel, they're still, very strong team that I think has a good shot to move up higher off of this 3 line.
Yes, as do West Virginia and Florida State. Rocco makes the point. They all lost within the past couple of days, so that's why they're all on this line instead of the 2 line. I also feel bad for the Aztecs because they could be undefeated, but I don't know if they're beating the Duke Seton Hall winner in New York City at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, you mentioned Florida State there. They were number 10 overall in the Midwest region. I don't think any surprise there. And at number 11 overall out in the West region is the Auburn Tigers. Joby, how about Auburn here? There's a little variety in this Auburn pick as to, whether this resume really is is this good?
I mean, hey, they love overtime.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 wins in OT, but you know what? They're getting the wins. That's what, as we saw in the Final Four last year, you can, if you know how to win in a tight game, you can win a national championship. Auburn, I've always rated Auburn a little higher than most of the other HD panelists because I like that record. And, yeah, they needed wins to back it up. Well, now they're getting the wins. In a reasonable – I'm not saying the SEC is as good as the Big Ten or the Big East, but in a solid conference, they are starting to stretch their legs. They had one bad week. That week is now a distant memory. And it was 2 teams that are in the tournament on those 2 losses. So I love Auburn here. I think this is where they are. And they have the ability, I think, to move up. If they finish the year with only 2 losses, they're a 2 seed and dare say, given they need help, but dare say they could even find their way on the 1 line if they only have 2 losses at the end of the year.
Well, I guess if they win out, we could talk about
win
that,
out.
but I don't think it's going to happen.
The record is a big part of this.
Mike, the second team we had in from the Big Ten, which is your conference here, was
Did we talk
Penn
about
State.
Florida
Yeah, wow.
We talked about them enough, David. Yes.
Well, I can see
Okay,
why because
well,
they've
one
won
of the
at
things-
Michigan State, and at Purdue, so they definitely have a
They've
bump
beaten
up.
protected seeds away from home, something Maryland has not done.
David, I'm talking to Mike, not you. Mike, go
And I
ahead.
think too much is being made of their non-conference schedule because, from what I understand, that's because they have 3 or 4 games against teams below 300. But other than that, they've played pretty good teams out of conference as well.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up that profile here for this Penn State team. Exactly right. That do we really fault it for that non-conference strength of schedule? When a part of it is the fact that all the bad teams they
4
played
games.
were really, really bad teams.
Right.
But they still have they played Alabama, they played Syracuse, they played a pretty good Yale team, they played
Yep.
Georgetown as well in there.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss in there as
He's a
well.
real
Oh, look, they
Power
beat
5.
Maryland. Did you see that?
David, where's the mute button?
Georgetown's not great, but at Georgetown is a Q1 win.
Right.
Now,
For now, Titel, you got thoughts on the Penn State? Do you agree with them?
Our
I
beat
was at
report.
that game. Penn State looked great, and Georgetown did not. And Georgetown's only gotten worse. I agree with Mike that as of today, it's good. Call me in a month when it's a tier 2 or tier 3 win.
Ah.
Wow.
So you're predicting Georgetown slides.
How can you not? They have 5 players on the starting 5, and the bench is literally a rubber band, a paper clip, and like some matches.
Let's take a look a little bit at the 4 line here.
55-year-old Sleepy Floyd could help, or how whatever he is.
Titel, you mentioned West Virginia. They're actually only slipped all the way down to the 4 line, but this is a team that, Rocco, some of the metrics are a lot higher than this on this West Virginia team, and we saw them on the 2 line for the committee over the weekend.
Yeah, we did. We saw them land at the 8 spot and then immediately lose to Oklahoma, which was a road loss against a tournament team, so you can't knock them too far for that. And then had all the opportunity in the world to get their big win last night and let it slip away. I think just by default, Auburn did escape with a win. Florida State lost to Duke. I guess Penn State for me is where the rubber hits the road. I still have West Virginia 12. I'm only going along with what the committee said. I'm trying to guess the committee like Titel, so I don't think they would have them at 12. But it's where the rubber meets the road for me because I love the Penn State resume. And if it was up to me and I had a vote, I would put them 12 personally. So I'm really good with where we have it as a group.
Oh yeah, I think actually, yeah, exactly. I like them more than Maryland.
David, how about Villanova instead of Maryland? Let's talk about Villanova. I know you liked it better than Maryland, but they came in at number 14 overall.
No, this is I had them. I don't even know if I don't think I did. I had them as a protected seed, but I think it was either the 15th or the 16th. This seems about right. I still think that they're a good team. They've been struggling lately. They're kind of going through a funk, but I think that that's more or less something that they're going to come out of. They still have opportunities playing in the Big East with the rest of the season and then in the conference tournament to get maybe back up to the 3 line or even the 2 line, depending on how much they thunder down the stretch. I hate to do this, but if this is where we had them, this is about where I had them, and I think we nailed it. A 4 seed in St. Louis.
Okay, we have Villanova here. Just closing this out. We actually have our 3rd Big East team coming in here with Creighton and Titel. Let me ask you about this because you had Creighton rated lowest of everybody. Is there something you don't like about Creighton?
Not at all. They're trending in the right direction, obviously, and they will probably be on the 4 line for me next Sunday. Just haven't moved them yet. Have we glossed over Mark Few against Huggins and Bill Self against Jay Wright, by the way? That's amazing.
Yeah, well, look at that. That is some coaches there in the Midwest region, I think.
10 miles is not there.
But yeah, let's close out the 4 line here. And Joby, the last for the 4 seeds, last of our protected seeds is Kentucky. I guess it's our second SEC team now, but the Wildcats do sneak in there to give San Diego State yet another team that could probably beat them before they make the Final Four.
Some reward for San Diego State.
Because they're going east.
You were rewarded by getting to play Duke in their true home.
But first, you got to beat Kentucky, yeah.
And Kentucky fans travel very well. There's going to be a huge Big Blue contingent in New York.
Yeah. And if it's not Duke, it'll be Seton Hall. Yeah, it's just right down the road. But yeah, Kentucky. I had Kentucky on the 5 line, but I was this close to putting him here. Yeah. So I think that Big Blue is taking care of business. They're winning, the games that they're winning the games along the way that they need to provide themselves with a protected seat. I think this is where they'll wind up. They're still young and they have some inconsistencies here and there, but that doesn't mean that we won't be seeing Calipari hoisting the big trophy even at the end of the day. This is a good team. Has Hagen's nice, good inside-out play, but you're always going to get that with the reloading that you have in Lexington.
I'll tell you what. If I was Baylor and I saw this as the 16 teams, I'd be booking my tickets to Atlanta right now, also, because I think they've got the easiest region, which the 1 seed should have. So I think we kind of did that right too here.
Yeah, San Diego State Aztecs fans, if you're watching this, you can see Chad's Twitter account. He built this bracket. Go ahead and let him know what you think.
Go undefeated and have Gonzaga lose a game.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at the 5 seeds. Let's pull all 4 of them up at the same time. These are the teams that just meets the Sweet 16. Oregon, who, as we record this, is losing, but they've kind of closing in a little bit on Colorado. We also have Michigan State, Butler, and the Colorado team that they're playing right now. All here, so 2 Pac-12 teams. And Rocco, you're at a Pac-12 game, although not the Oregon-Colorado game. Your thoughts on these Pac-12 teams getting in on this line?
I think this is about where they belong. I have Colorado as the top 6, but I think Iowa was losing last I saw tonight. So
they'll clearly lose, yes.
Yeah, that was the only team I had barely ahead of them, and that was a close call to begin with. It was more so because the committee said they talked about Iowa being a 4. I'm putting a little bit more weight on them. But, yeah, I like this 5 line that we have here as a group.
Yeah,
I do
agree.
too.
I had Marquette as the last 5. I mean, it's splitting hairs.
Yeah, good job, committee. I think I had Oregon a little higher, but not by much. I like that Michigan State is here and not a protected seed. I like that Colorado is here because this is the highest I think we've had them all year. This is a Colorado team that is on fire right now.
Well, Joby, you had Colorado all the way up as a protected seed.
That was one of those teams I had ahead of Kentucky. Once again, similar to what I said about Auburn, and before that, Maryland. You lead a major conference. The Pac-12 is a solid league this year. We're going to see 4 or 5 some odd teams litter this field. They're in first. They've looked good doing it. They had one hiccup at UCLA, as we know, but besides that, they have been very strong. And I think this is the team that I think, and tonight's playing itself out. It's only halftime, but this is the team out of the Pac-12 that I think will get a protected seed. I think there will be at least one, and probably only one Pac-12 team with that protected seed.
Yeah, and of course, Chad puts them in San Diego State's region.
Michigan State and Butler, the other 2 teams of the 5 line. Let's pull up the 6 line, though. Should we come here a second here? We've got Marquette, who we just mentioned, along with 2 more Big Ten teams in Iowa and Illinois. Iowa losing tonight to Indiana and LSU as well. Ty, let me ask you this. Iowa just got trounced by Indiana. Would you knock them down a seed line because of what happened tonight?
I would certainly consider it. I mean, there's plenty of I think the 6, 7, 8 seeds are all starting to blend together a little bit. And certainly the Big Ten, as Mike said, is having a fantastic season. So you don't get penalized too much for a losing effort in conference play in a great conference. But no, I would consider it. And Auburn LSU, a great SEC rematch there. If it's regulation, I pick the Tigers. If it's overtime, I pick the Tigers.
Yeah, that may not be possible if they meet again in the SEC tournament. That match.
I assume Auburn and LSU have only faced each other once.
That's correct.
Okay, I was gonna
they're only
say.
scheduled to face each other once. If they meet in the SEC tournament, that would not be possible because it'd be a second matchup.
Yeah, but we don't assume future matchups. So.
We also had Marquette and Illinois here on this line. I think this Illinois team has slipped a little bit. I think they were
they have.
they were bordering on the protected seat a few weeks ago, but
Thankfully, Desonwu or whatever his guy, he wasn't hurt too seriously. It looked pretty bad when he slipped on the court.
yeah.
I thought it was an ACL.
Oh, good. So that's good news there. Although they're playing my Scarlet Knights this weekend, so hopefully it's just out
Chad,
for one
we
game.
meet up next Wednesday at the rack.
Yep.
A lot of tough games.
Let's take a look at the 7 seeds here. We've got Ohio State and Michigan. So, Mike, I got to ask you about this. We have 2 more Big Ten teams coming here on the 7 line, including your Michigan Wolverines, along with Houston and BYU on this line.
Yeah, I had Michigan at 27 overall, so that's just right. I mean, I don't know how much the committee will take into account that Isaiah Livers has missed 9 or 10 games. I mean, you can't ignore those games that he missed, but I would think they would consider it a little bit.
Exactly, and let me ask Rocco. Let me ask you about this Houston team because I actually had them rated higher, not based necessarily on the resume, but just what they're doing with their conference, and it's still not a bad conference, even though it's not a great conference.
Yeah, I think this is a fair place to put Houston. I think their resume probably screams more of an 8 or 9 seed, but the way they play on the court and their physicality and the way they just beat Wichita, took them to the woodshed. I think they're trending upwards, and they belong on a 7 based on if you're just watching the team play. They look very intimidating. And they beat my Huskies, so I know it firsthand.
Yeah, I think it's kind of more of an eye test for you with Houston, which I normally don't like to go with, but when you have a team playing in a conference where they're playing a lot of garbage opponents, you may need to do that every now and then.
Well, and they haven't lost now in the last month, and they've only lost once in the last 2 months once that Oklahoma rolls off in a day. So – they're playing. They
lost to Cincinnati, did they not?
Oh well, there you go.
Okay.
But the way they're also winning, as you hint, Chad, is extremely impressive. They're winning by big numbers when they do.
Yeah, I mean, what they did to Wichita State weekend was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. That's the wrong screen. Here we go.
Houston can only play the games in front of them, and it's not their fault that the rest of the conference isn't that good.
Right.
Exactly. I guess the question here is if Houston runs the table, wins out the regular season, wins the American Championship, I don't know if they can get all the way to a protected seed, but isn't the 5 line within their reach?
I think so.
Yeah.
That would be the ceiling.
Yeah. And remember, those Big East and Big Ten teams, someone's got to lose.
Cannibalize.
Somewhere along the way. If Ohio State and Michigan play, someone's got to lose.
Yeah, and if I like their chances against Maryland. I think that's a very winnable round of 32 game for Houston.
I want to throw just another real quick note in here. BYU actually, by the way that things played out, would have been an 8 seed, but because of the fact that BYU cannot play on Sundays created a major bracketing problem that ended up having to bring them up a line to the 7 line and drop the bottom 7 seed down, which Titel was actually your Arizona Wildcats, who got penalized by seed line because of BYU. Here are the 8 seeds, though, and you can see Arizona, Wisconsin, Texas Tech, and my Rutgers Scarlet Knights in there going to play.
Answer my question about BYU is whether they were a true 7 seed. The answer is no, apparently.
No, they would have been an 8 seed.
Well, I can tell you after watching the UCLA game, Arizona's not a true 7 seed either. They were terrible.
Yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing is, it's funny that it's 7 because 8, 9, you can't drop BYU. I always think
that's why I had to bring BYU up because
BYU,
exactly.
But
so Chad, who is the true 7 seed that got bumped to an 8?
That would be Arizona.
Arizona, okay, yeah.
And they get to play Baylor in Omaha.
We've already lost to this year.
Yeah.
Arizona a lot of wins, but it's very light in terms of quality wins.
I'm going to go on every
resume.
And reveal the 9 seeds here. So we're actually going to see some potential first-round matchups and some interesting games here, I think. And Titel, I got to start with you with what's going to happen here in the South region. Arizona, Sean Miller against Xavier.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
We got the Sean Miller game bowl, the Sean Miller Bowl.
That would be the third meeting in the NCAA tournament.
I love it. I'd rather have you drop me to a 9 so we can have a Rutgers-Arizona game, but that's pretty good.
Yeah.
We've got Rutgers, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Purdue, and Wisconsin, USC. There's that USC team there, Rocco, that you mentioned earlier as well, I think, right?
Yeah, Huskies are actually in a battle with them as we speak. But, yeah, they've had a good resume. They've won a lot of games away from the Galen Center and belong in the field. I think that Texas Tech-Purdue game actually it has the highest ceiling. I think those two teams could actually make a run and upset a 1 seed.
And I hear the band starting there, Rocco.
Yeah.
We're getting ready for tip-off, so we got to keep things moving here.
Correct.
Lose him.
Yes. 19 minutes and counting. The guys are dunking. It's getting exciting in here.
Let's look
All
at
right.
let's look at some of the 10 seeds, including Michigan and Ohio State's opponents here in the potential first round. We've got Ohio State matched up with St. Mary's, Houston with Virginia, Joby, your team. So I'll ask you about this line. BYU, Northern Iowa, and
Northern
Michigan,
Iowa
Rhode
up
Island.
on the 10 line. Good job, committee.
Wow, Northern Iowa at 10.
Yeah.
Joby, what are your thoughts on your Virginia team getting here on the 10 line?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad matchup just because it's not like Houston is offensively explosive. It would be an ugly game to watch. That's for sure.
I like the potential Maryland-Virginia second round matchup.
Yeah, that would be fun. But Virginia, it's what Virginia is
Dayton, Ohio
really
State,
playing with fire right now because they are. This is where they belong. But you go to overtime. They lose that home game against Notre Dame. We might not have them on this board. Right. And so they've got a bunch of this weekend. They go to Chapel Hill. North Carolina is not the North Carolina, obviously, of years past. But you lose that game against a team that took Duke, who we have as the 5th overall team, to the limit. If North Carolina beats them with Cole Anthony, Virginia might be falling out of the field altogether, depending what happens elsewhere. So the ACC's weakness is most felt on Virginia and any other bubble teams we'll mention going forward. And so Virginia probably, to feel safe, needs to get either that Louisville or Duke win in Charlottesville.
David, I want to ask you about a team here, St. Mary's.
Okay.
You did have them on your top 55. You had them 54th out of 55 teams.
Yeah,
I do not think they were an NCAA tournament team. Why not?
This is a very weak profile. BYU at home is decent at best. I mean, that is not, to me, what you can top your resume out at. And I know that the Wisconsin win looks good, but you also have to look at when they beat a team. And Wisconsin had not gotten it going. If you looked at how they played in November, it wasn't the same caliber that they've been playing since they've started the Big Ten. Utah State at home, again, to me, they just don't top out high enough. And look at where they bottom out. My God, Santa Clara and Winthrop, losses at home. Pacific, not – you just can't do that. And I'm just not seeing it. And on top of that, they just don't look that good. You know, their best game, and it was a good one, was, I thought, the game against Arizona State, where they at least looked really good. But they didn't particularly look good against Nevada. You know, going to Pepperdine and sweating them out. They didn't exactly put Cal away. They sweated out San Diego. I just don't see it. So it's the paper and them on the court. Maybe I've just caught them on the wrong nights, but and they didn't particularly look good against Gonzaga, but not many
nobody does. But Titel, do you want to take the counter to that? Do you want to tell David why St. Mary's is a tournament team?
Because if you lose a quadrupler on the road, you shouldn't get penalized too much. Plus, they have a ton of Tier 2 and decent Tier 1. I agree that, like, losing the 2 Tier 3s is not good, but I also like the fact they're not a home court hero. 5-2 on the road, 4-1 neutral. That's good metrics.
Joby, what was the 4 for?
Now, the last of those 4 is up for debate, and we'll see. They've beaten 4 teams that I listed in the field.
BYU, Wisconsin, Arizona State. Obviously,
I do have Utah State. But they were my last team in. But that's better than that's better than Virginia, who has 2. You know, in comparison.
Let's go ahead and Northern Iowa in there, there's the auto bid winner, a team that's at the verge of breaking the top 25, actually. They think they just barely missed it last week. Rhode Island, we discussed them a little bit during the Hoops HD report Monday night. But let's take a look at the 3-11 seeds that did not, 3 out of the 4-11 seeds. The 4th spot there will be one of the first 4 games. But we have Wichita State, Florida, and Indiana. Rocco, Indiana, a big win tonight. I think that might push them up a seed line at this point, and Wichita's still making the field here. You had an interview about Wichita today, so.
Yeah, so Wichita State, I saw they got a big win at UCF. They had to have that. I think they're pretty much as close to the cut line as you can get because of the fact they don't have much against the field. I think the only solid field win is home against Oklahoma. Now they've got 3 decent road wins at Oak State, at UConn, and at UCF. I think with the remaining schedule, their 2 big ones are going to be at Memphis and at Cincinnati. I think they got to split one of those 2 and then do a little bit of damage in the American tournament, although the committee's work might be done by the American semis. So just win that American quarterfinal game, and that should be good enough. But, yeah, they've just had 2 different seasons. They dominated, started 15-1, got into the top 20, and then they really fell apart. A lot of individuals on the team. Coach Marshall had an inspired practice on Monday. And apparently it worked. They looked great tonight. So we'll see how it goes from here for the Shockers.
Right. We've got Florida in there as well. But let's go ahead. I'm going to reveal 2 of the first 4 teams. This will be the teams 11 seed there in the East region, our potential matchup against Illinois. And it would be, once again, Mr. Titel, for the 500th year in a row, Arizona State going to the first 4, this time to play Arkansas, who I did not think belonged to this field, but the rest of you kind of did, because I think this team is just so far down in the SEC standings.
Yeah, I would not sleep on the Sun Devils as much as I want to. It could be 7 minutes away from being in a 4-way tie with 4 losses for the conference lead in the Pac-12, which says more about the Pac-12 than about ASU. But if you're tied for the conference lead in losses, you belong in the NCAA tournament, I think.
Yeah, but what about this Arkansas team, Joby? I mean,
I'm with you, Chad. I have 55 and barely straight. So I don't get it. Pull up the profile and tell me, where do you see NCAA tournament accomplishments? I don't.
50, and that might be generous.
I guess that Indiana's looking better right now. But that's weak. That's weak.
Yeah. And look at that, 4-7 in the SEC. There's could be 6 or 7 teams that finish above them in the SEC standings that do not make the tournament.
Yeah, Alabama, who they beat though, but Alabama's ahead of them and no one's saying Alabama should be in the tournament. I think on this group,
they only have 4 wins against Q1 and Q2, and that's not very good.
But the only tournament team win is Indiana. If you look at it,
That's it.
And an Indiana team who, oh, by the way, was here on the 11 lines. Not like it's a solid team by any means.
Yeah,
they are tough at home, though. I mean, they are a home court hero. So I think you got to give them. You got to look at where the game was played and how hard it is to win in Indiana too.
Okay. Well, at one team on the 12 line, not quite the first 4 yet. East Tennessee State, by our rankings, actually would have fallen in between the first 4. So we actually had them rated as the next best team before we get to our final 2 first 4 teams. But they'd be an auto bid winner, so they cannot go to Dayton. The last first 4 spot here in the West region, Stanford and Utah State. Rocco, you're at the Stanford game. Your thoughts on the Cardinal? Do they belong in right now?
Do the fans know, Rocco? Do the fans know that
they made the field?
Stanford? Yeah.
Let's find out. Hey guys, you guys are in the field. See how excited they are. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Pandemonium here at Maples Pavilion, guys. I can't describe it. You have to be here to know what this is like. So Stanford, 30th in the net. That's really keeping them above water. Their resume could be argued in a room full of 10 people, five people in, 5 people out. I think this is right where they belong, just barely in.
And the other team that made it here, Joby, you mentioned them earlier. Utah State actually snuck into this field, which kind of surprised me, but maybe more of an indictment of the fact that there's nobody else to put in at this point.
Right, and they were my last team. Look, pull up Utah State.
They're on the right.
Look,
yep.
They actually have. I compare them to Arkansas. I like that resume more than Arkansas, for instance. With actually 2 tournament wins away from home, and yeah, they have the problem Utah State has is obviously playing the Mountain West. So when you take a loss like at Air Force or UNLV, it's ugly. But they've actually accomplished something positive, which when you compare it to some of the teams they're competing with, and I'd include Stanford in that category along with Arkansas, they can bring something to the table. I personally like that. I don't know if the committee will go that far, but that's something I appreciate.
I'm going to take a look before we go to the rest of the field here. Take a look at some of the top teams out. They're the top 4 teams out in order. David, let me ask about these. We had Richmond as the top team out, followed by NC State, Cincinnati, and VCU. And Cincinnati with a win tonight. Maybe that's the team to replace Utah State in the field, or Arkansas.
Yeah, I think well, the thing is, when I send you the list, I don't know exactly where the cut line was, but I know that I ranked all of these teams. Yeah. NC State has more losses than what you'd like to see against non-tournament caliber teams, and as does Cincinnati. The one thing I'll say about Cincinnati, I know recency bias is not a thing, but in their last 10 games, they've looked like an NCAA tournament team. I think they're 8-2, and while they did lose to UConn, they've been winning games like you'd like to see. The one team that I don't understand at all, and somebody must have ranked them high, because I don't think I ranked VCU at all. I just don't understand what.
Let me go to Mr. Titel, who did like VCU.
Yeah, like they're dropping like a stone. I get it. Like shades of Wichita State, God forbid. They're certainly trending downward, so I don't have a problem with them being out. They're literally, I think, my last team in at the moment. I just believe in this team mostly because I saw them destroy George Mason on the road in person, but I'm starting to give up a lot of faith.
And then Mason destroyed them in Richmond.
Yeah.
Well, Richmond and VCU play on Saturday, so that could be an almost elimination type of game if you can call it this early.
Yeah.
I like Richmond.
Cincinnati and NC State both on profiles there. Joby, you're our ACC guy. That NC State profile, Georgia Tech and North Carolina at home, but they bounced back with the win at Syracuse last night.
Yeah, and they legitimately won that game while it was tight. They legitimately won the game at Virginia. UNC Greensboro's a good win that gets underrated. This is the problem that I said when we were discussing Virginia. The ACC's lack of tournament depth is a kind of a death spiral, so to speak, for the teams on the bubble like Virginia and NC State. It's almost like they're the conference leader in an under-the-radar conference. You can't afford to take a loss against anybody except for those top 3. And, because then it'll be a bad loss. And maybe especially when you haven't built up the resume ahead of time, beyond like in NC State's case, Wisconsin, in Virginia's case, Florida State, you don't have that depth on the resume to be able to take those hits. And, in a normal year, the ACC would be looking at 6 or 7 teams, and a loss to a Syracuse, a win over Syracuse is a win over a tournament team, equivalent. It's not this year.
Yeah, and you look at, like, for example, I got Richmond on the left there, was a top team out. Wins away from home at Rhode Island, win away from home against Wisconsin, and not as much bad there. They only have 2 losses outside of Quadrant 1 as opposed to 6 on the NC State. So.
Yeah, I really like
I think that's why those 2 teams are at least so close.
I had Richmond because they won at Rhodey. I actually had Richmond a spot ahead of Rhodey. Now, I know I'm underrating Rhodey compared to everybody else, but, the fact is Rhode Island doesn't have a win against anybody. They look good. Don't get me wrong. They look good, and they haven't stubbed their toe like we just talked about for the NC States of the world. And Richmond's done it twice, but Richmond's actually beaten Rhodey in their home place and Wisconsin. That to me equals Richmond.
Yeah, and then there's that Rhode Island profile. They like I said, they swept VCU. They beat Alabama and Providence, but and they lost the Ocean State Championship game to Brown.
Yeah, that in the way they've been able
to really look at the paper, Richmond's better. Yeah. I think Rhode Island looks better. You can make a strong. I think their eye test is actually pretty good, except for the Dayton game.
Okay, a few other teams. There's a bunch of other teams that are going to pop up right now that also got votes to be in the top 55 at least, and actually in this order: Georgetown, Memphis, South Carolina, Notre Dame, Utah, Texas, Mississippi State, Minnesota, Tennessee, UNC Greensboro, Syracuse. Really got down to the bottom of the barrel there, though, by the end of it. Tytel, you're shaking your head. Is there anybody here that you think in these last 11 teams I just put on there that has a real shot at even making the run to move up there?
I think Minnesota only because they're going to have tons of chances for tier 1 wins win the Big Ten. Everybody else, I think, is no.
No.
Non-conference strength of schedule is horrible for Oregon State.
Yeah. The Minnesota is interesting because 12 and 11 overall stinks, but they do have 4 big wins already. Even Wisconsin win makes it 5, and they don't have the bad losses. So you have a 4-game winning streak, and you are right there, are you not, David?
Yeah, if they have a 4-game winning streak, they're right there.
Oh, absolutely. Because that would include
Minnesota just
Maryland.
needs to get 3 games above 500 and they're in.
Yeah.
But that's a lot easier said than done to get 3 games above 500.
Yeah, I could see them also going the rest of the year without winning another game. Maybe
Well, they're going to
Nebraska
beat
at the end of the season.
Northwestern. I think they beat Northwestern, Nebraska. But
Both teams have shown some life recently, too. Let's go ahead. Now, I'm going to reveal the rest of the field here. The rest of the 12 line, Oregon's opponent in the first round is going to be Stephen F. Austin.
Okay.
And Colorado gets to match up, I believe, with Liberty. Let's see if with Yale.
Ooh, that's a fun one. Yeah.
Now the rest of the seeds are 13 line. These are the opponents for the 4 seeds. We see Creighton matched up with Bowling Green.
Ooh, that was fun.
Villanova against Vermont.
That one's
Huggy Bear, Liberty.
Mhm.
That's
Huggy Bear against Liberty.
Kentucky, New Mexico State.
And Kentucky, New Mexico State. So a lot of fun games there in the 4-13s. The 3-14s.
Gets a little less fun.
A little less fun. Penn State, we're matching them up here with Hofstra. Florida State with Colgate. Auburn with North Texas. Seton Hall with Wright State. 15 Cs. Now we get to the bottom of the barrel. We're down to the crazy upset type of land here. Dayton gets the Little Rockos.
The Little Rockos.
Coming off a loss tonight, but Maryland gets Winthrop also coming off a loss tonight.
We called that.
Wait, Winthrop lost tonight? I am learning this for the first time.
Did they not? They lost Gardner Webb. Yep.
Oh,
They did.
man.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Gardner
is-
Webb's best player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Louisville gets South Dakota State there. Duke gets Murray State, the Ohio Valley champions. And the 16 seeds, these are who the 1 seeds match up with. Baylor would get the winner of a Robert Morris, North Carolina Central play-in game. Kansas against Rider. Gonzaga, the winner of a Montana Prairie View game. Montana fans come to Spokane, maybe. And Irvine gets San Diego State has to play Irvine. So
watch out, San Diego State. That's all.
That's Irvine. On that note, I want to head over. I'll leave this up here. Go to head to each of you for any other final thoughts for the night on what the bracket looks like, on anything else you want to discuss. Rocco, I know there's a lot of noise, so I want to let you get it in your final thought in real quick here, if you can, before the game tips.
My final thought is very simple. You got 2 of the 4 play-in teams playing right in front of me. It doesn't get better than this for a bracketologist. I'm going to see some bubble action tonight. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Rocco.
and I appreciate you telling them that they were in the field.
That was awesome.
That might be the funniest thing that's happened since Stalika compared NC State to a venereal disease.
Oregon surged to take the lead now.
Good to see you, Mike.
Yep. Oregon's up by 3 with 3 to go.
Yep. Who are we up to next? Tytel.
So my final thought on the bracket is just the coaching in the Midwest region. You got Bill Self, Jay Wright, Tom Izzo, Tony Bennett. Unbelievable. My final thought regarding something else is going to knock your socks off, I hope. So my shout out is for senior point guard DJ Williams of Coastal Carolina. There she is. So tonight the Chanticleers beat Troy 124-103. She had, in my opinion, one of the best all-around games in the history of the sport. 51 points, 4 of 9 from behind the arc, 15 of 18 at the free throw line, 7 boards, 8 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, and 0 turnovers in 39 minutes. To make it even more amazing, as a freshman, she had to redshirt. She had to deal with chemotherapy treatment for ovarian cancer. Have you ever heard of a greater comeback story in your life?
Wow.
Wow, that is amazing.
That is
Tytel teased me that he was going to knock my socks off, and he did.
We should have ended with that.
Well, let's just go ahead and end then.
I don't even remember what I was thinking about a second ago.
We're going to give the shout out here. I do want to, on that note, we will end, and we'll thank everybody for joining us. And on behalf of Rocco Miller, who is down there somewhere, David Griggs, Mike Cha, Joby Fortson, John Tytel, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you again real soon.